Hey guys, thank you very much for joining me again. Today it's again a bit later than normally, so sorry for that, and thank you for speaking with me. I'll keep it short today, for real, because today's topic will be about COVID. As you know, I've been answering questions you've asked me under one specific video on TikTok, and then all my other social media like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube as well. But I started with the questions from TikTok, and I'm only missing like two or three last questions there. And one of them was about like a document called uh, confirmation of receiving authority about whatever. And that was basically a confirmation. Either if you were employed and you just got your employee card approved, or if you were a student and your student visa has just been approved, that was a confirmation of either the university or your employer confirming that once you arrive, they will provide all the necessary care you need from like the perspective of COVID restrictions. So, for example, if you needed to be like in quarantine for some time, then they would provide you with the accommodation for that. And the same for some other parts of the COVID restrictions. So you always, during COVID, when you had to, or when you had your employee card or blue card or a student residence permit or student visa approved, before you picked up your visa from the embassy, you had to provide this document. So usually you had to get it from your HR or from your like admission department or wherever. And before you went to the embassy, you had to send it to them, and only after that they would issue the visa for that. So that was a question I got on TikTok. If like, what is this all about? And as of now, hopefully, this is which is what is today now, 20th of June when I'm shooting this video or when I'm doing this live stream. So at this point, I'm not aware of this being still effective. We've had people being approved at different embassies, and none of them was asked about that. We had a client like a month ago who was applying for a student visa, and the school sent this confirmation to her for her visa application. It's never been needed for like, actually you could submit that even if you were like applying for the visa, not only after approval, but people usually only needed that after the approval. So anyway, the school sent us this form, or sent this form to the applicant, to the girl, like a month ago. So maybe they still do it, and it's good to do it and not need it, then not to do it and need it. But as of now, I'm not aware that embassies would still be requesting that. Maybe it can also differ from embassy to embassy, but generally this should not be needed anymore. And that brings me to the rest of the topic. If some like COVID restrictions are still in place, or if the immigration is still influenced by that. But as of now, June, like the second half of June 2022, there are no really like restrictions because of COVID. All the embassies are officially open. All the embassies accept all the visa applications, and there are no quarantine restrictions or anything like that in the Czech Republic. So hopefully this should be the end of it. Of course, kind of because of the war in Ukraine and everything happening there, all the media attention and everything is focused now on the war and not on COVID anymore. But still, on the back side of it, COVID is still going on, and there are still high cases and all that. So maybe something will change again, and when the autumn comes, maybe there will be some restrictions again. But as of now, we can enjoy the COVID-free immigration situation. So hopefully, I answered this question from TikTok properly about the confirmation of the receiving authority. If not, please feel free to ask me some more specific questions. And I touched the topic of the COVID restrictions, or like what is the situation now as well. So now everything is back to normal, and hopefully it will stay like that forever. So Now, time for your questions. As I said, I would try to keep it short. So if you have any questions, guys, please feel free to ask. Now is the time. There is one question on YouTube, so I'll answer it now, guys. So if you on Facebook have some questions, feel free to ask now as well. So Ginesh Sharma, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly, Ginesh. Hi Jan, I've applied the dependent visa for my wife from New Delhi, India on 22nd June. It will be 90 days and it's still in process. If I don't receive any answer on 22nd, what should I do? Good question. I've answered similar questions many times before. And if you're a fan or a subscriber, or how we call it on YouTube, if you scroll through my videos, you will definitely find answer to this specific topic there as well. But yeah, you asked me in a live stream. I promised to answer. So here we go. These kind of timelines, there are some official timelines the ministry has to make a decision about your application. So it depends if you applied for a visa or residence permit. If you applied for a family reunification visa, you're right that the ministry has 60 to 90 days to make the decision. If you applied for a long-term residence permit with the family reunification purpose of stay, the ministry has up to 270 days to make the decision. It's family reunification visa. Okay, so in that case, they have 60 to 90 days. But anyway, if you submitted the application 90 days ago to the embassy, it's not exactly how the ministry calculates that anyway, because the embassy does not make the decision. The embassy has to take the documents physically, ship them to the Czech Republic, then they get to the Ministry of the Interior, and then someone starts working on that. So what often happens is that nothing is happening with your application for a couple of weeks, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, the application is still somewhere in the no universe between the embassy and the decision maker at the Ministry of the Interior. So if you applied for the visa, say 90 days ago, maybe they started working on that 60 days ago, so they still have some time. So definitely what I would recommend is keep waiting. If it's now just 90 days, maybe they will make the decision on the 90th day. But if not, then still give them a couple more weeks, because the ministry doesn't really like if you like poke them and if you tell them that they are not doing something correctly. So in theory, you have two options. What you can like, my recommendation is sit tight, wait for a couple more weeks. If nothing is happening in like a month or something, okay, maybe start thinking about some other options. But I would now at this point, if it's just like 90 days now, I would just recommend waiting, because the decision might come fast, or maybe not that fast, but in a couple more weeks. So I would just give them the time. But then if it's been taken very long and you want to do something about that, you have two options. You can either send a polite letter to the Ministry of the Interior, requesting the status of the application, saying like, hey, dear ministry, I've applied more than 120 days ago. You haven't requested any documents. Please tell me the status of my application. It has no legal value, so they should officially respond, but they usually don't care. Don't bother. So but what happens is that they at least need to take this letter and put it into your file. So they will, they might realize, okay, this has been lying here for a very long time, let's do something about that. So it might actually help, even though it like officially it's not important at all to the ministry, but might help. The second option would be sending a complaint letter. That's actually a very strong legal. That's a very strong legal, Billa and also Penny. No, that's a very strong legal thing to do. It's basically an official complaint. Let's say this is a decision maker or the decision making division at the ministry, and then there is a special committee for like decisions in the matters of foreigners in the Czech Republic, and that's above them. So you basically skip this part and you go to the special committee. So you address the letter to the committee, and that's basically their bosses. So if you complain about the process taking too long, and if you say, if you, especially if you quote some law, because this letter must already follow some like rules, so you need to quote the law, you need to you need to specify what exactly it is you don't agree with at the like behavior of the Ministry of the Interior. You need to also uh, explain what you expect them to do. So you cannot just say I'm complaining about, or you can do that, but it will lose the power. So you should not just say I'm complaining because it's been taking too long. You should say, based on this paragraph of this immigration law, the official timeline to decide about this type of application is 60 to 90 days. I specifically applied on this date, and today is this date. So if you calculate it, you are like two months late already. And I'm requesting the ministry to make the decision within 2 weeks. So you should always tell them what the outcome should be and what you want them to do. So you should tell them, I want the ministry to make the decision within 2 weeks, or request some documents from you, if from me, if they're not happy about something. So you should write it like this. And if you write it like this, if you write an official complaint letter and send it to the committee above the asylum, or like the decision makers, let's say, then they react to that, because that's their bosses and they have to react. And if you say, I want the ministry to make decision in 2 weeks, they tell them, the committee will tell the ministry, make decision within 2 weeks, and they will. Then the question is, if it's a good decision or a bad decision for you. Generally, the ministry doesn't like if you tell them what they should do. So they might not deny the application right away, because they would need to have some official reasons for that. But they definitely can make it way more complicated for you. So they would, for example, say, hey, you applied 6 months ago, even though it's our fault that it's 6 months ago, but it's 6 months ago. So we want all the documents again. We want all the documents fresh. So bring us the documents fresh, and you have 10 days to do that. So then you need to deal with that. Or they could invite your wife for an interview, and they would question her about like your relationship, how like, why does she want to move here if you've been living here for 6 months and she's not been here yet? Are you a real couple? They could just try to make it complicated for you, even though it's their fault, but you complained about them. So that's why we don't recommend sending any letters to the ministry, because sometimes if you send a letter before they reach the official deadline, they could also see it as your way to influence the process and like influence the decision, and it could even lead to a denial of the visa. So at this point, definitely wait a couple more weeks, and if nothing happening after that, you have two options: either a polite letter asking about the status of your application, or this official complaint addressed to the committee and like written under specific rules. So would you recommend sending an email to Czech Embassy in New Delhi to find out the status of the application? Sorry for the laugh. Emails don't work in the Czech Republic, not really for any official purposes. Yes, they might, but no, like especially with the Ministry of the Interior, whatever you want them to do, you need to like send an official letter or go there in person. Emails not really work. Second thing is, the Czech Embassy has nothing to do with that. They don't make the decision. The decision is made by the Ministry of the Interior. So the embassy only knows what the ministry tells them. So if the ministry tells them the application was denied, please inform the applicant, they will do that. If the ministry tells them the application was approved, please inform the applicant, they will do that. If the ministry tells them we need some extra documents, please inform the applicant, they will do that. But they have no further information. So, and especially New Delhi, I don't know what's your experience with them, but generally people don't really receive any replies from them anyway. So we have good relationship with them. Whatever we needed, we got it. So if someone from the embassy is watching, I thank you for the cooperation. but generally people from like the applicants usually don't get any answer because the embassy is not responsible. So even if they wanted to tell you something, they know nothing because they're not the ones making the decision. So I don't think it makes sense to write them an email. The only reason why to do that might be because the embassy will inform you about the decision. But if you, for example, used an incorrect email or they made a typo in the email or something, or sometimes their emails go to spam. So maybe for this reason, it might make sense to write them like, hey, it's been taken too long. Is it possible? Or did I give you the correct email address or something? But like to find out what's happening with the application makes no sense. If you're already living here because you're inviting your wife, it would be definitely way more efficient for you to go to the Ministry of the Interior in person and ask about the status there, because they are the decision makers. They can access the system, they can see any notes from the decision makers, so they will definitely be more likely to give you some valuable information than the embassy if you send them an email. Okay, Sayan Mayumdar. Hi Jan, hope you're doing well. I submitted my application in employee card fast track process. How many days it might take to get the visa? Well, officially they still have 60 to 90 days. Usually through the programs it takes shorter time. It can be like up to 1 month maybe or something like that. But you never know. Like with the ministry, you never know. So yes, these applications should be like the fast track process. It should be faster, but the programs are anyway mainly about getting an appointment at the embassy. Because if you're, for example, from India and you want to apply for an employee card, but your employer is not registered in one of the programs, you will never apply because there are no spots available for people outside of the programs. So the programs are mainly about getting an appointment after the ministry limited the amount of appointments, but whatever, that's just how it is. So for the faster approval, yes, it sometimes works this way as well, that it gets approved faster on top of getting an appointment sooner, but generally I cannot tell. Agnello Andrews, hi mate, nice to see you, thanks for checking in. Gabriel Ospina Diaz. Hi, Jan. I know you're busy nowadays. I wrote you an email 2 weeks ago and moved to Prague. Don't forget about me. Thanks. I stay tuned to your videos. Thank you, Gabriel. I might remember seeing your email and reading your email. So don't know what happened there. Check your spam folder just in case, because we've been sending plenty of emails. So sometimes we have problems especially with Gmail, marking our messages as spam. So please check your spam. If nothing is in your spam, I will check on our site and we'll make sure that if we haven't replied yet, that we will do tomorrow, probably tomorrow or the day after. So thank you very much for staying tuned and for staying with us. Ginish, yes, I'm living here. Sounds like a good idea. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that's the best. Just go there in person, ask, and they should tell you what they know. And now, last question from Facebook. Savsofa Bugatfa Eb Oweslati. Sorry for the pronunciation. Good evening, Jan. As you know, I got a long-term visa for the purpose of family reunification. Can I work and the employer accept to hire me? If you have a long-term visa, the family reunification, you unfortunately cannot work. Only if you get the residence permit. Safa. Okay, Safa, I understand now. Okay. Unfortunately, if you just have a visa sticker in your passport, you cannot really work, cannot get employed. If you found an employer who is willing to hire you, then you can switch to the employee card. That's possible. So if the employer is willing to help you with the process, you can switch to an employee card, or you can get a trade license, and then you become a freelancer and you can invoice companies for your services. And that's something what some companies will actually even prefer, because it's way cheaper for them. If they should employ you, let's say you're like a gross salary or net salary is 30,000 crowns, the total cost for your employer is 50,000 crowns. So they pay 30 to you and another 20 to the government for the social security, healthcare, income tax, all this. If they hire you as a freelancer, if they pay you 30, that's the total cost for them. They don't have to pay anything on top of that to the government because you're responsible for that. So often what they do, if they hire you as a freelancer, they will even offer you a higher salary, let's say. It's not technically legal what I'm describing here. So yeah, but it still happens in real life. So they will offer you maybe 35,000 crowns instead of 30, which they would offer you as an employee. So these are the two options. If you find an employer who's willing to support you in the process, you can switch to the employee card. If not, then you can get a trade license and work as a freelancer. Rohit Raj Pandey, the last question, guys, now, because I cannot speak anymore. Hey, Ann, I wanted to ask if I'm living in CZ for 4 years almost and recently got my employee card through a job agency. Is it possible that I can change before 6 months? Special case, the client I have told the agency is the one that wants to hire me. I do not have free access to labor market. Well, it's interesting. You probably didn't have the employee card before, because now you cannot change. Your new employer cannot be an agency. So this must be your first employee card. Doesn't really matter. You should not be able to change your employer. Honestly, this is a good question. I will find out about it. If you get in touch with me directly, maybe in private message or something, I will find out, because there are some exceptions for agencies, but I believe this was the main motivation behind the change a couple of years ago, that you cannot leave the company sooner than after 6 months, and that the new employer cannot be agency, all that. Because what was happening was that a company got you the employee card, so they spent money and time on advertising the position, paying the agency and everything, and then you came here and you directly went to a different company, or you went to an agency and they assigned you, often to the same company, just for a higher amount of money. So that was something the companies didn't really like, so they kind of lobbied this into the law. So I believe there will not be any exception for agencies. Generally, if you get your first employee card, you cannot change your employer for the next 6 months. There are some exceptions, like health problems, for example. If you cannot work on the position because of health, then you can change sooner and all that. But generally, you cannot. And I believe that applies also to agencies. But if you send me a text message or like direct message on Facebook, I'll be happy to confirm that. Okay, guys, thank you very much for tuning in today, for staying with me. Hopefully, I'm bringing you still some value and some good information. And I'll see you again on Thursday, and then on Monday and Thursday and Monday and Thursday, and until the end of the world, or me, or the internet. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Gabriel, thank you as well. So tomorrow or the day afterwards, you'll be hearing from us if we haven't sent you anything earlier. And thank you very much, guys. Good night, and see you again. Bye-bye.